most of the time will let my actors bring their own delivery into the performance, meaning if they want to change a few words here and there, I totally let it happen. I check and make sure it doesn't break outside of what I'm trying to do, like narrative-wise, right? But if, I know myself, if I have to say a certain phrase of words and I trip over things, it's much easier if the director will say to me, oh, look, it's cool, man, you say it how you want to say it, and they go through it and they choose a phrasing from there. That totally works, and it makes the performance a lot stronger a lot of times. So I actually encourage that. I also don't think that I'm the most amazing writer ever. I don't have a huge ego about that stuff. So if an actor has a simpler way that they can say it and it's more direct or it sounds nicer, I'll take into those accounts. Sometimes actors will try, I had an actor in the past that would try to improvise a lot, and sometimes it would bend outside of the narrative that I'd want to, and I tried to rein him in as much as possible, but there were times where I couldn't actually rein him in, and it was a little frustrating. And then when I got into the editing room, of course I had to cut down his performance. It was like, sorry dude, I couldn't rein you in, so I'll cut you down in the performance, in the editing bay. And so I did that, and it worked fine. So sometimes you have to do that, which is, well, it's just a reality. Sometimes, no matter how hard you work an act, you can't get what you need out of the actor. And so then it's your duty in post-production to sort of cut things down. Editing is such a strange thing to talk about. A lot of the times directors are editing their own work, and it's a really tough thing to do well because you're so attached to the stuff. You're so in love with your own footage. You're like, oh no, I can't cut this scene down. And me, I got a bunch of hard lessons early on about my work from very large, very powerful reviewers. Like Elvis Mitchell from the New York Times just ripped me apart with some of the early work I did, and it really was a hard lesson into what I thought of my own work. And so what I try to do is to not think of my work as that precious. I edit, and then I'll step away from it, and I'll get more detached from it, and then go back to it and edit. I take a ton of feedback from a lot of different people, and for instance, on Mark of the Beast, there was a scene. I wrote this scene. It was a dialogue scene around a dinner table. I wrote it. I thought the dialogue was good. I thought, all the points were valid in it. And you're like, okay, it's concise, it's short. So I think that scene was maybe, 3 minutes long, so 3 pages of dialogue. And I got into the scene, and I started editing, and I put it in place, and looking at the pace that I was setting with the other visuals, there was a melody. It was like, this scene happened, and then this scene happened, and then this scene happened. We go to the dinner scene, and it just starts lagging, and you can feel it lagging, and the pace and the melody is not right. The cadence is not right. So rather than saying, no, this is important, it needs to stay, I just cut it down, man. I cut that scene down to probably 45 seconds. And you know what? People like it better. And you'll be amazed what you can cut down. Cutting 3 minutes down to 45 seconds, it's nothing. Anyone can do it. Result is a lot of my films are shorter in length. They're all features, right? But for instance, London Betty I did, if you watch that movie, the pacing is pretty good. There's a melody, it moves. It very rarely does it slow down to a point where you're going to dwell in that moment. And that's a technique that I do because I think as independent filmmakers, you are not going to get any sort of leeway. You're not, it's like the way I approach filmmaking is that a lot of people don't know me. A lot of people think that I'm a nobody, right? And they're not gonna give me the benefit of the doubt. They're not gonna vouch for me or sit there an extra 10 minutes to see if the film will pan out. So in result, a lot of the times in films like London Betty or Mark of the Beast, the pacing is a lot more rigorous. It's we get the scenes, we'll move along, we'll move along quicker. And it's because I don't necessarily think that that what I'm doing is so wonderful. We have to move the plot along. We have to keep people's attention. And those are things that I value very, very much. Ron Howard would always talk about Roger Corman, and how Roger Corman was an audience advocate, and how he would make films that, were audience pleasers and things like that. Well, Roger Corman is one of the most successful independent filmmakers who has ever lived. And the reason why I think he's so successful is for that very reason. Some of his movies are campy, some of his movies are brilliant, He understands that the audience will only give you so much leeway. And so Ron Howard described him as an audience advocate. And so I try to be that way. I try to say, okay, let's move this along, let's get the pace going. You just can't be too stubborn about what you think is great. I constantly see these filmmakers, these first-time indie filmmakers, and they put their film together, and they're putting it together, and they're so in love with their footage, and there's these themes, and they're like, no, this is important, this is a 4-minute dialogue scene, and in a car, and it's brilliant, it's like Tarantino, and and you're just sitting there, and you just can't get through the dialogue scene, and you're like, God, this is so long, and they can't see it. And they won't see it, and that's why my perspective is show your stuff to a lot of people often and spend time doing it. If you're editing an independent film, I would give yourself a year. I mean, yeah, maybe you can do a rough cut in 3 months or 2 months, maybe 6 months, whatever. Do your rough cut, take a break for a couple weeks, if not a month. Go back to it, watch it. You're going to see stuff that's blatant and you can cut it down. Show your friends. Try to reach out to people in the industry. Just say, hey, look, I just need a critique on the rough cut. A lot of people will do it, Get as much critiques as you can. Keep refining. It's a craft. I mean, editing, I think, has a lot more in common with, like, sculpture. It's reductive. You're reducing. You're pulling things off, You have to chip away at it until it's streamlined, and there's a simplicity to it, That's my perspective. I just hold on to the fact that, do I think I know a lot? I do know some things, right? But I don't think that I'm any sort of master. I just try to make films that hopefully people will enjoy and hold their attention span. If I can do that, then I've held up my part of the bargain. Because if I'm going to go and write my own movies and direct my own movies, okay, that's I'm a big enough ham already. The worst thing that I can do is to fall in love with my footage so much that I don't cut it down and I don't make it quick enough where people will hold their attention span. At that point, I'm just messing around. I'm not even doing serious work if I don't care about what the audience thinks. Some people are like, oh, I don't ever listen to my critics. I listen to my critics. I read every single one of my reviews. Sure, I cipher through what I think's valid and what I think's not valid, but I listen to all my reviews. I don't, good or bad, I don't care, man. You in this business, you have to shed, you have to have a tough skin. You have to toughen up. I always say, you have to take your medicine. If you get bad reviews, read all of them, man. See what you think's right. See what sticks, right? A lot of the stuff you're not going to agree with, fine. It's one guy saying they like or hate your movie, fine. But you got to read them. I think you do anyway. That's my humble opinion. But that being said, as far as the running times of my films, like London Betty was 80 minutes. Atlanta College Prophets was 80 minutes. Mark at the Beast is, I think, only 72 minutes. Bikini Bloodbath was 72 minutes. I think all three of them were. Everything Mows Alone was 90 minutes. That was my one of my first features on 16mm. Now, I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. A lot of people think that a feature-length film is at least 90 minutes, which is totally untrue. And if we look at Roger Corman films, like a lot of them run in the 70-minute length. And films that are older, like 60s and 70s, a lot of them run like 70 minutes, 75 minutes. Like, the 90-minute running time, really, you see more of that in contemporary narratives, right? Theatrical narratives. A lot of the time you'll see like, oh, a film is about 90 to 120 minutes. Well, not actually true. Most animated features are